Um, So I have these questions posted, by the way, and I am looking right now to see where I need to pop up your chat window so I can read your responses. But if you are here and you are able to kind of look at these questions and in a chat respond, that would be excellent. Welcome. I'm looking for chatting. Hi, everyone. Ah, there it is. Ah, hi, yay. Hopefully you can see this now too. I'm so happy I can see. Oh, you can see me. Can't see the entire questions. I will move it. Can you see it now, Jeremiah? I think you can. No, you can't see? Is that better? Let me move this over. The Zoom screen is blocking the questions. Interesting. Let me keep looking. I thought I shared my screen with you. Let me make sure. It says that my screen sharing is paused. Well, let's unpause that. See what happens. Resume share. How about now? It is shared. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you. Yay. Thank you, Jeremiah. Thanks for your help, you guys. I haven't, it's been a couple months since I was on my last session with Zoom for this course, so I'm just refreshing my own memory. So we will start talking. I'll stop talking momentarily, and then we will start talking as a group in about 5 to 10 minutes. If you're willing to go through some of these questions and answer them for me, that will help me get to know you, which I very much look forward to doing. And now I'll stop talking and give you time, okay? Jeremiah, can you tell me what big history is? It's an interesting title. I don't know what big history means. Got it. Science and history, interesting. What grade level? What ages? Oh, interesting. That's great. I have not heard of that, but I love.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Hi, good evening. So big history is a combination between science and history. It starts all the way from the Big Bang Theory and it leads up all the way up to modern time. So right now we're teaching about the Goldilocks conditions, the different elements that makes up the cosmos, and we're also touching on the different disciplines, like astrobiologists and different disciplines that we are introducing the scholars to.
Is that just at Brooklyn Lab, or is that a course that's taught throughout New York? I haven't heard about it.
Well, the actual course is geared toward ninth graders. So
Yeah,
what me and my co-teacher, Mr. Joseph, has done. We're working on tailoring it directly for sixth graders. There
I
are
see.
other people that within the network that teaches the program. And if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken, I believe it is a part of the Bill Gates Fund. So he is a big
Oh,
part of the big history curriculum and the idea of teaching it.
that's fascinating. Thank you. I'm like, yay, I already learned something new 1 minute into the course.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
No, thank you. That's fantastic. Okay. All right, let's give everybody a couple more minutes. I see that there are 9 of us here. And if you are a person who has joined us with the class, just talking, would you consider answering some of these questions, please, in the chat? Otherwise, you could take the mic if you'd like. You're welcome to do that as well, and unmute yourself and talk onto the phone. But if you can, it'll just really help me get to know a little bit about who you are, which allows me to attune what I say in these sessions to what you will benefit from here. I would love to avoid a generic lecture and tether what I say exactly to what you're thinking about and working on. And so the more I know about you, because we're not located in the same spot, the easier that will be. So if you haven't yet, thank you, Shelley. Oh, great. Hi, Nina. Great. Great. Thank you for sharing that. If there's anything I should know about you, let me know. I'll see if we can get maybe like 1 or 2 more people to share. We'll start in about 4 minutes. I will start at what my clock will say 4:40. Yours will say 7:40. Rui, thank you. Jeremiah, I think you're, can you mute yourself? I'm not against, I like hearing you, but I'm hearing you type.
Oh no, that is not me. I was already muted. That's someone else. I just
Oh, who is that? Somebody who's typing. Do you mind muting yourself? Thank you.
And they type
Thank you.
way quicker than me. That's way quicker than I can ever imagine.
Whoever's a fast typer. Okay. Okay. Let's take just a couple more minutes. Okay. And you all can see each other's responses in the chat window, correct? I just want to make sure. Okay. Thank you. If they respond to everyone, that's right. So I have gotten a couple of responses that are private to me, and I'm more than happy to honor that. If that was an accident, whoever's written that, just unprivate yourself, and then you'll be able to share with the whole group. If you would like to remain private, I'm okay with that. I'll take 2 more minutes till my clock says 4:40, and then I'll start talking at you a little bit. Okay. 1 more minute, and then we'll start. Please excuse me. Getting a cold. I saw that private message. Totally fine. I respect that. Okay. So I see, let me just check how many people are here. We have 9 people here. Welcome. I spoke to Aaron Studer today, so he gave me a little bit of background on how things have been going from course 1 for all of you. And I think part of what we'll talk about tonight is just making sure that everyone's aware of what the assignments are and all of that kind of stuff, but also that you have an opportunity to let me know as your instructor what will benefit your learning and what will not benefit your learning. And sometimes that has to do with scheduling and timing and all of that kind of stuff. So I would first and foremost just like to welcome you all to course 2. I would like to thank you for participating in this online PD this year. We spent a lot of time building these courses so that they would be practical and useful and supportive of your direct work with kids. So that's my goal in my interactions with you in these sessions, and also in my purpose in designing the activities that you'll see on our Moodle page and over the course of the course. And to that end, I've said it in my emails several times, but I want to re-emphasize while we're here. Please contact me if you would like support, help, to talk, guidance, suggestions, tell me things you're not into. Just, you know, I would like to know so that I can know how to best support you as an instructional leader. So for tonight, what we're going to do is not a huge amount. It's our first time together. Just like course 1, we will have 4 Zoom sessions during the 6 weeks that we're together. And tonight, what I'm just going to write down kind of a mini agenda down here. So first, I'll introduce myself so you can find out a little bit about me. Then I'll revisit course 1 questions, communications, things you might, these are some of my questions to you, like what should I know about you? And then I'll show you course 2 syllabus, assignments, blah, blah. And then we can, if we get to talking a bit about language, we can, but for this session, that might not be what comes up for us, and that's okay. We can talk about the content of the course more explicitly next week. Okay. Trying to reach them. I'm reading a little bit of Shannon's and Alexis's posts. Okay. So thank you. That's really helpful. Thank you to everyone who was able to post some stuff. That's useful to me. I want to give you a little bit of background so you know who I am, so that it hopefully will facilitate you knowing the kinds of questions that I might be able to answer versus the kinds of questions that I might seek out additional support and help myself to answer for you, although I'm happy to. So my name is Jessica Tunney. I am originally from the East Coast, so I'm very excited to work with a group of teachers from the East Coast. I'm from Philly originally. I got my master's for teaching in special education at Bank Street College, and I graduated then in 1999. I lived in New York for a long time, and I began teaching as a classroom teacher at PS 321 in Park Slope, 7th Avenue and First. So I think I'm not terribly far. I feel like you guys are in downtown, right? Like by Grimaldi's, I'm imagining, in downtown Brooklyn. And I taught at 321 for a bunch of years, and then I came out to California, and I began 2 lines of work that have taken me to where I am today. One of them is I started facilitating the Schools Attuned Professional Development Program, which is where the content of this course largely lived. For a long time, Erin facilitated that professional development as well. I believe there was 40,000 New York City public school teachers were trained in Schools Attuned in the late 90s and early 2000s. And this neurodevelopmental framework is the heart of what that course was about. I came out to California in 2006. And I facilitated Schools Attuned. I had been leading a fair amount of professional development, and then I also began teaching at Chime. Oh, your sister worked at 321. Like, aha, what's her name? Oh, Elizabeth Garrett. That name is like familiar, but let's talk after. Anyway, I was there from 99 to 2002. No, and then I was back. I'll remember in a second. Anyway. I started teaching at Chime, which is where Erin is executive director currently, and this is where this course was built. And I taught there for a few years as an inclusion teacher. So I was in a gen ed position, and I'm assuming Erin told you a little bit about Chime. All of the classrooms are fully inclusive. It's a charter school, and all classrooms have neurotypical kids and kids identified with disabilities. And then also, of course, kids that are not necessarily identified with disabilities, but are struggling for learning and for one reason or another, or several. And in that position, I learned a whole lot about taking what I had learned in my master's preparation of special education, applying it in a general ed role in cooperation with a special education co-teacher. And through that, I gained a lot of direct skill and experience in playing around with curriculum to make it meet the needs of our learners. And I found that using this neurodevelopmental framework as a lens for thinking about what it is that was problematic for kids who were struggling and where the leverage points lay for kids to support them in improving areas of weakness and also improving areas of strength and building upon their interests. I really got a lot of direct practice with that as a teacher at Chime, and I draw on that to this day. I left Chime in 2009, and I moved to where I am now, which is Orange County, California, and I pursued a doctoral degree in education on teacher learning, and that's where I sit now. I have finished the doctoral degree, and I've been in teaching these courses for a bunch of years with Erin and our team. So my heart lies in Brooklyn, to be honest, and Philly. My practice exists in California, and I'm just really thrilled to work with you guys and get to know you a bit. And part of my interest in asking you about your challenges at Brooklyn Lab is in knowing how I can best support you as teachers, but also the school did not exist when I was in New York, although I was in that area a lot. I spent a lot of time, all around. The charter proliferation had not occurred when I was there, and I also know with the amount of building and the neighborhood has changed a fair amount. So I'm very curious about the students that you're serving at your school, and the context of your school, because that makes a big difference for the kinds of support and guidance I can offer you. So that's kind of me, shorthand. And down those lines, before we revisit course 1, I will ask, given what I just told you about what I know about Brooklyn, what I don't know since I've been gone, is there anything you could share with me about the challenges that you face, or what might be specific about your context at Brooklyn Lab School that I should know as your instructor to help me serve you? I'm going to give you guys a minute. You could either pop on the line, or you're welcome to chat this in the chat window, and I would love to hear. So what are the things, what might help, Jessica understand the context of teaching and learning at our school? This is a question I just asked you. And so anything that you would like to share or tell me would be useful. So I'm seeing that there's like making sure all the students get what they need. That's something that Shannon had shared. That's important, and I want to know that. I'm seeing that theme reflected as well in what Alexis had written. Let's see if maybe 1 or 2 other people could share ideas about that. It does not have to be via chat. If you're more comfortable taking the mic, take it. And I will wait about a minute or 2. While I'm waiting, I want to grab my charger because I see that my computer needs charging. Okay. Well, if it comes up and you have any ideas about what would be useful to communicate with me, I encourage you to do that at any point. Other than that, what I'm really trying to find out, well, I'll go through the syllabus with you now, I think. And as I mentioned, I spoke to Erin, and I want to make sure that I accommodate where everyone's at. Anyone that's on the line, do you still have work from course 1 that you're completing before you could complete course 2? That would be helpful for me to know, so I know what's going on with you. Yes, you do. Okay. Jeremiah, thank you. So you want to reach all scholars. So I'm hearing that theme, everybody so far, which is a theme that I love addressing. It's reaching all learners. And who else might have stuff you're finishing up from course 1? I ask you because I want to adjust what I ask of you. In course 2, I was a teacher. We work hard. There's a lot going on. So I'm going to show you the syllabus, and then I'm going to invite you to chime in at any point as I'm sharing it with you and make requests that about what kinds of accommodations might help you. Okay? This syllabus is available on our page. Actually, let me just show you our Moodle page, which I'm sure you've already logged into, but let's just go there. Once we load. Okay, and let's do this. Okay, so this is our Moodle page for course 2. It doesn't look identical to course 1, but the format of the course is largely the same. And we did that intentionally to keep you without having to readjust to different formats every 6 weeks. So, excuse me, this is week 1. And in week 1, you have these 2 videos to watch. There's a Craig Pullman video, which I know you've seen before because they were in course 1 as well. And then I do something that I think is different than what Erin had done with you, which is sometimes, not for all sets of slides, but I often will do what we call a mini lecture. And I do a recorded lecture over slides. I think this one's like 7 or 8 minutes. It's not terribly long. I do that so that we don't have to do that during these sessions. During the Zoom sessions, my goal and intention as your instructor is to engage you in discussion and thinking about ideas related to the topics we're studying, as opposed to presenting information that's new. Since it's an online course, there's lots of time for you to log in at your leisure or at your desire for it. And then once you're logged in, you can get engaged with the content. But what online courses don't offer as much, of course, is opportunities for discussion with an instructor. So I like to use these sessions for that purpose. For that reason, sometimes if I just throw some slides up there, it's not obvious what the goal or the takeaways are from them. So I will often post a little mini lecture. I ask that you watch this. Typically, if you can watch it prior to the Zoom session on Wednesdays when we have them, that would be good, because it facilitates our discussion if you've already been thinking about the content a bit. However, if you cannot do that, still come. It's totally fine. We will make do. I'll probably ask who had a chance to watch it and who didn't, so I know the context of what I'm talking about. But it's not a requirement by any stretch. Questions about that? Okay. All right. So for this week, so I put the lectures, I'll always put the readings, and the readings include the slides. So the same slides that are in the mini lecture are these in the intro. And if you download them, there's a couple of links that take you to our activities for this week, so you can follow those links. The links don't work unless you download them yourself and put them in slideshow, just letting you know. But once you do, you can get there. This week, you'll also be asked to watch, or you won't watch it, but you will look at the slides, hopefully, for the way the language levels are laid out within the neurodevelopmental framework. As teachers, there is an extremely high likelihood that you are already familiar with many of the kind of classic ways that language is discussed in terms of dimensions of expressive language and receptive language, and listening, speaking, reading, writing, interpreting text. Within the neurodevelopmental framework that we present in these 6 courses, there's a certain specific vocabulary that goes along with the language as we talk about the construct of language. It's not in conflict with any of the other frameworks for thinking about language, but it is its own. So that's what these slides present to you. And it talks about levels of language like morphemes and phonemes and semantic sense and things like that. And it also talks about dimensions of expressive and receptive language. And then within this framework, we talk about what it looks like, and that's where you'll see in this workbook, it's going to talk about what it looks like in the classroom if a child has a semantic, for example, a semantic strength or a semantic weakness. It's going to do a little bit of talking about what it looks like if a student is struggling with phonemic awareness or has a strength in phonemic awareness. So that's kind of the ways we're thinking about language during the first several weeks of the course. This week, you will have a reading reflection. It's not supposed to be long. It is supposed to be based upon the readings, and the prompt is in there for you. I have that due by Sundays at midnight, so this would be a time if people are interested in talking to me about when a good time to turn that is in. You could do that now, or you could email me privately at any point. And I want to make sure that you feel good about completing your work, because you'll get the most value out of it that way. I'll pause for a second in case anyone wants to communicate. Okay. Let me know if you change your mind. You also have a quick write this week, and the quick rate is based upon what you are going to look at in the content. And the quick rate, I will show you what that means. Basically, it's a discussion forum, and you did discussion forums with Erin, correct? Just tell me so I know. Anyone could chat it or chime in. Is the length right? Oh, thank you for putting the questions out there. So the length of the reading reflection is expressed. I think it's approximately 1 page. I'm not here to grade you on your grammar, or just so you know, this is not a course where I'm being like your writing teacher. So, you know, use complete sentences, and please, for my sake, but I'll be focused on your ideas exclusively. The quick rate, excuse me, does have a length expressed. So the reading reflection, I'm pretty sure it's 1 page or less. We can look, let me look, or 1 to 2 pages. 1 to 2 paragraphs. I already adjusted for you. I wrote it right there. I always try to be super clear with what the expectations are. You're welcome. And I try to make sure that, you know, like I said, I was a teacher. My goal as your instructor is for you to think about the reading. My goal as your instructor is not for you to spend a lot of time after you've been teaching all day and have to teach tomorrow composing prose for me. So, like, let's take that off the table now. I'm going to push your thinking because that is important for your teaching. I'm going to be flexible on the way you express that. And that is going to look like shorter assignment lengths, although if you would like to write more, you can. I'm doing that for your sake as teachers. I'm also doing that, full disclosure, to model for you what it looks like to give your students options of how they express what they know or engage with content while still maintaining the integrity of the lesson. So our week 1 learning goals are pretty clear, and we want to get to know what is the language construct as it is presented in the neurodevelopmental framework. And so my assignments are directly aligned with that, and that is what I will be looking for, is how you're thinking about language. I will not be looking for lots of other features of writing mechanics or these other kinds of assignments. So I want to make that clear, and partly just between me and you, but also for you and your kids. That is at the heart of a lot of differentiation and approaching kids as learners that are individuals, is really drilling down into what is the learning goal and what are the various entry points for children engaging with the learning goal, and what are the various ways that students can express what they're thinking and what they know. Okay. Quick write is supposed to be a quick write. It's 100 words or less. So it's not as short as like a tweet, right? But it is intended to be a synthesis of your thinking that you can write quickly and that your peers can kind of skim and respond. So that's for this week. Some weeks we'll have a discussion forum that I don't give a formal length for, but a couple paragraphs is usually appropriate. The quick write is purposefully supposed to be shorter, okay? Any questions so far about this week or what I've just shown you? Okay, so I will now walk you a bit through the syllabus, and I will, full disclosure, this is my least favorite part of any course because I, as a student, find it boring. I'll try to make it brief and as interesting as possible. So I will not read you the top of the syllabus. You can download it. It's at the top of our Moodle page. It is right here. This is the document. Download it when you can, please. And it says, come to the Zoom sessions. The time is not totally right. The online discussion forum is the same kind of general approach for quick writes and for longer discussion forums. The idea is to demonstrate a thoughtful approach to the content, not just a summary. Did you have experiences with Erin where you were asked to respond to peers in discussion forum? Would you let me know that? Did you guys do some work posting and responding to peers? That's what I'm trying to find out. Yes, Shelley. Okay. Okay. And did Erin I'm going to follow up since you answered. Did Aaron give you dates by which you had to like do an initial post or a follow-up post? Yes, on the message board. No. Okay. So you did respond to each other. You didn't have dates. Okay. That's what I'm guessing. That's okay. That's okay. So here's how I've typically run it. And oh, you did have dates that you had to respond by. Was it like Wednesday or Thursday for the first post? The reason I'm asking you this is I can modify the discussions, but I think I'll just throw it out there for you for now. My intention with the discussion forum assignments and the quick write assignment, yeah, it should be within the week. Perfect, thank you. With the quick write assignments and the discussion forum assignments, the goal is for you to post and then respond to 2 peers. That's in the direction. If nobody posts until like Sunday of the week, it's very difficult for everyone to go in and respond because there's not posts there to respond to. So my request and goal in the assignment is to guide you into having a digital conversation with each other. And the way to do that is to make sure that you post at some point. So if you can post like during the school week before Friday, that would be ideal. And then you will have text to read over the weekend and do 2 response posts. I'll keep an eye on that in the first couple weeks. If there's an issue with that, let me know, but that's what those assignments are. I just want to kind of put that out there and tell you, okay? Past that, here's what's going to happen in this course. You'll have some weekly assignments. They'll always be posted. This week it's the reading reflection for week 1. You will have a discussion forum or a quick write every week except week 3, just to give you a little rest. And then we have this one 3-part assignment that is not really big. It builds on itself, but it does occur in 3 parts, and I'm going to show you that in a little bit. And then Zoom sessions. So this is a point breakdown, and you can look at that at your own time. And here's grading and expectations. Don't worry too much about that. I mean, read it, please, on your own time. I'm not going to read it to you during this session. And then the course schedule with all the assignments is actually already inside the syllabus. It's redundant, but I wanted to house it in one place for you, okay? So this has all the weeks of what's already posted on the Moodle page. It's here, and it has the assignments and all of that good stuff. Are there questions about the syllabus as of now? And this is the wrong side. Okay, if you change your mind and you are like, wait, I have a question, just ask, okay? What I want to show you now is also posted right here on our Moodle page, as are the quick write and discussion forum guidelines in case you felt like reviewing those. You're not obligated to. This learning activity project assignment is this document, and it has you will also see it weekly when it's due. It's due in week 2, week 4, and week 6. Okay, so here's part 1 in week 2. You'll see it. Here's part 2 in week 4. And here's part 3 in week 6. And what that looks like is, the idea is just to apply what we're going to learn about with language and higher order cognition to actual people that you know, that you potentially, hopefully work with in the classroom. If you're a classroom teacher, if you're out not in the classroom, then you, I'm assuming, can find people to work with. If you can't, talk to me directly. I will modify the assignment to make it work for you. And the idea is, excuse me, to consider, is a big idea. So you're going to look at the strengths and challenges students face in the area of language and higher order cognition for 3 different students. There's no formula for selecting those students. My suggestion to you is to pick 3 students you're curious about for different reasons. And it could be that someone has an exceptional language strength or a seemingly higher order strength, and you just want to kind of understand them better. It could be a child that has a disability, and you're not sure the nature of that disability, or you are, but you're not sure how to address it. and it impacts their use of language in the classroom, either expressive language or receptive language, either at the discourse level or vocabulary level or something like that. So you're going to pick 3 kids, and you're going to kind of follow them through the lens of language and higher order cognition. And then the kind of final part of the assignment is you're going to think about how you might address a strength or a challenge in either language or higher order cognition for the student. I will show you what the assignment is so you know, and you can ask questions, and you can let me know now or whatever. You can start thinking about it as soon as you would like. So I made a table format for you in line with my own instructional vision, which is to not overly burden teachers who spend a lot of time and energy working hard and serving kids all day, to not burden you with work that I could do. I want to push your thinking. I don't want you to spend a lot of time formatting stuff. So I created this table for the part 1 of the assignment. You can use this exact table and just fill in the boxes. Thoughtfully fill in the boxes, please, but just use the boxes. So what I have here is you're just going to think about what language strengths and challenges look like in your classroom. So you're going to tell me, please, your age and grade level, and what content area you teach if you're teaching in single content, number of students in your class, students who are ELL, so that I kind of get a sense of who's in there. And then you're just going to look for pick your 3 students, and you're going to find a relative strength in the area of language. Even if it's a student that is limited with their speech or nonverbal, there's going to be some relative strength in language that you could identify. It could be that that student has oral listening skills that are better developed than expression. It could be that a student is really able to read and comprehend text, but has difficulty in conversation. It could be that student has a really strong memory for vocabulary relative to other aspects of language, things like that. You're also going to identify a relative challenge. This might be an obvious challenge of a student, for example, who is struggling with receptive language and following directions in the classroom. It could be a more subtle challenge for a student that demonstrates the language strength. You might have a student who typically has a huge amount of language strength, but has a relative challenge in expressive language for abstract thought, meaning that student, when they raise their hand to speak, they are not as able to articulate ideas when they're not concrete as some of their peers are. So you're going to look for relative strengths and challenges for each student. You're not going to find, because life isn't like this, you're not going to find it's the same student who has, or 3 of students in your classroom who have very obvious strengths in language and very obvious concurrent challenges in language without a little bit of thinking. If you put some thought into it, you will see that everybody brings relative strengths and challenges to all of the constructs, and that's the goal of this first assignment, and to think about those constructs in terms of the actual kids that you work with. And then the bottom just asks you to kind of summarize your overall impression just in a few sentences. Questions about part 1 of the assignment? Can you inform the scholars? That you're observing them for these purposes? Is that what you mean, Jeremiah? Yeah, if it were me, I would inform them. Leslie is your admin, correct? Or Shelly, I'm sorry, Shelly, I'm just learning. Maybe she would be willing to weigh in if that's an issue. Does that mean no, it's not an issue, Shelly? Or does that mean no, you shouldn't inform the scholars? Oh, sorry. No, you're not their admin. Isn't your admin on? Why did I see somebody was an admin? And I apologize because it's just so. Theme for small group. Oh, okay. So I can't answer that in terms of Brooklyn Lab, Jeremiah. If it were me, and depending on your dynamic with your Thank you for sharing. See, this is why I need you all to talk to me so I understand who I'm talking to. I think I misinterpreted when I saw dean of something. So you maybe have different names for things, like specialist is a dean, or we might use that language somewhere else. I'm not sure. So if it were me, Jeremiah, yes, I would say something like this to my class, and you have at least 6th graders, and I don't know if you have other grades that you work with. If it were me, I would say even to 4th graders or even to younger kids, because I've taught early elementary grades as well. You know, I'm learning about language and how people use language and what's hard for them with language and what's not hard for them with language. One of the things, and I might tell them a little vignette about myself. The one thing with language that I am pretty good at, I think I have a strength, is verbal expressive language. I do lecturing, I'm able to communicate my thoughts to people, I'm comfortable talking to people, I can explain ideas, you know, I'm a teacher, this is like a strength area. Relatively speaking, I have trouble understanding what I read. It doesn't mean if I were, and I might not say this to the kids, but between me and you guys, you know, I score fine on reading comprehension, but I know as a reader, I'm much slower, and I have to really think about it, or I tend to tune out, or I'm thinking about something else. It's not a strength of mine. So I might tell them, you know, I have things that I'm really good at with language, and I have things that are harder for me. And I'm going to might be watching some of you kind of closely sometimes, and I might even ask you some questions about it because I want to learn more about you. I find that when I tell kids I want to learn about them, they're very open and comfortable with that. Otherwise, it can seem like I'm spying on them. Does that answer your question? Good. Other questions about part 1 or anything like that? Otherwise, I'll move on. So part 2 is another template, and I make templates for you because I find it's easy to grade, haha, on my part, but it's also, you don't have to create paragraphs in prose and try and make it look like a lovely prose. For me, I would rather you just think hard and put your well thought out idea inside a table. So this, for part 2, you're asked to revise what you wrote for language and add what you notice about the same kids' relative strengths and challenges in higher order cognition. You will use the 7 features of the system that we will introduce you to in week 4. That's when you see how higher order cognition is laid out within the neurodevelopmental framework. And that is what you will then just add on to the same table. So part 2 of the assignment just builds directly on part 1. It's the same thing, different construct. Okay? Question about that? And you're going to be looking for patterns across kids, and it's going to be a little messy, and that's totally fine. You know, kids are complex and dynamic as human beings are, and so I expect that your observations of kids or interviewing with them will reflect that as well, and that's totally fine. Part 3 is where it gets real. So part 3 asks you to take what you have observed about kids and now start thinking about addressing their needs in the classroom. So this does not need to be very long. I wrote in approximately 500 words, so that's like a page or so. This is not supposed to be long, but again, I encourage you to think hard and write a little, but think very hard. And what I'm going to ask you to do is think of a classroom routine or learning activity that would be difficult for students who have a challenge in language and/or higher order cognition, and suggest a potential scaffold or support to encourage participation in learning. This might be based directly on one of the 3 kids that you observe. It might be a kind of more global consideration of your classroom. That's up to you. I want you to do what is most useful for you in practice. So if thinking about one of the 3 kids that you observed is the way you want to do it, do it. If that's not the case, it's fine. The goal is to think about a task or a lesson that you offer to kids that you think would be difficult for someone with a challenge in language or higher order cognition, and you want to find a way to support people who might struggle. That's the goal, okay? And the second part of that is to think of a classroom routine or learning activity that would benefit from enrichment for kids that likely have a strength in language or higher order cognition. And this is to make sure we attend to kind of sides of the spectrum, right? There's going to be kids that are really struggling with language, and you want to attune your teaching and assignments such that they can participate and be supported in the classroom. At the same time, there's going to be kids that you don't want to miss out on pushing their thinking as well. I like to think of the classroom in terms of people's initial questions that you were asking earlier, or what you were saying is up for you about addressing the needs of all scholars in your classroom. An approach to that that I have used in my own practice and I teach about in my own work and I continue to believe in is that in our classrooms, or in my classroom as their teacher, everybody pushes their thinking and stretches themselves as much as they can, and that's what we do. And that's what I'm asking you to do with this assignment. I'm not asking you to write a lot. I am asking you to stretch your thinking. And that's what this assignment is asking of you to think about for your kids. What's it going to look like to support someone with a language-based learning disability or just a language struggle, and push them to the point where they can participate in rigorous learning along with other peers. And also, someone who finds like language to be a strength of theirs, what's it going to look like for them to extend their own thinking such that they're slightly uncomfortable and grow? And so the idea of addressing the needs of all learners in the same classroom setting, to me, has a lot to do with a shared commitment to making yourself a little bit uncomfortable and stretching so that you grow. Where you end up is going to look different because everybody's different, right? But the practice, excuse me, my kids are home and they are loud. I apologize if that was disruptive. But anyway, the idea is to have it be what's common, and what's shared is stretching and growing and pushing your thinking. And what's going to be different is exactly what kind of benchmarks or levels kids are at. That's a way to have a common focus in a classroom in diverse settings. Comments about that? Questions about that? Thoughts about that? Disagreements with that? You're welcome to disagree. Okay. Don't worry, I'll bring that up again. That's one of my favorite things to think about. Okay, so that's that assignment. So I'm going to close that, and I'm going to assume that you got this. And if you have questions about it, that you will let me know over time. And let me now take a look back at our little mini agenda, which went where? Aha, that's it. Okay, so given what I was just saying to you, I kind of want to just give you a little bit of background on how I use that approach. Sorry, I'm trying to close this document, but this thing keeps coming down. I apologize. Let me move it. Oi. Haha, quick. Okay. So the neurodevelopmental framework in general, I don't know how much of this Aaron spoke to directly. He introduced, you've met all of the constructs, right? Thank you. Thanks, Alexis. You've met all of the constructs, I think, broadly in course 1. So here's the thing, as your friend in the endeavor of educating children, that I have found this work particularly useful for. That goal that I was just sharing with you of having a classroom setting where you can have learners and really embrace the differences and diversity among learners, which I have never been in a classroom that doesn't have diverse learners, right? There's inclusive classrooms, it's very obvious, and then there's even tracked classrooms or special day classrooms where the kids are still all different because people are all different, right? And so what I have found about this neurodevelopmental framework that has had me remain with it for, now I'm realizing, over 15 years, I've been using this content to guide a lot of my thinking and my work with teachers. What I really like about it is that it emphasizes and makes very clear and obvious that every single one of us brings with us to a learning setting a profile of strengths and weaknesses that you can think of as falling along these neurodevelopmental constructs. So we all look different in terms of our strengths and weaknesses in memory, right? Higher order cognition, language, attention, temporal sequential ordering, spatial ordering. If we do a composite profile, and I feel like you did a learner profile for Aaron, or maybe some of us are still working on that, that's cool. This can maybe help you think that through a little bit. Knowing your kids in these very detailed ways, using the language of these 8 constructs in the framework, I have found has given me insight into the ways to leverage what kids are interested in, what they're good at, and what they want to work on as ways to support where they struggle. And that is, to me, lies at the heart of a lot of differentiation and work in classrooms that builds a learning community of people that stretch their thinking and push their ideas. What do I mean by that? Well, if you use the constructs and you identify, for example, that a kid has a real strength in temporal sequential ordering and has an accompanying strength in mathematics in your classroom, you also might identify, for example, that same student has a weakness in expressive language and their writing really needs a lot of work and is not up to grade level standard. If you know something about that kid has a temporal sequential strength, you might draw upon their strength of ordering to help them practice and work on expressive language. For example, you might ask that child to recount for you what were the main activities that occurred over the course of the day in your classroom, drawing on their temporal sequential strength to allow them to practice something that's harder for them, which is expressive language. They're going to use what they already know intuitively about ordering, or maybe you would have that kid be the one to explain, say you're New Yorkers, and maybe have that kid be the one to explain how to get from Brooklyn Lab School to Central Park, which trains to take and why, and where the platforms are if they have an ordering strength and a knowledge base that accompanies that. That same child could then be the one to work on explaining to the rest of the class, which allows them to build up strength in an area of weakness potentially by drawing on an area that's already a bit stronger. I don't know, does that make sense to people? Can I get any like, what, or yes, I see what you're saying, or that makes no sense to me, or anything? I'm not going to force you to respond, but I can tell you that I can attune what I say much better to what would be useful for you to hear if you tell me if that makes sense to you, if it doesn't, if you have questions or what. I'm going to wait like 1 minute just to see. Okay, well, I'm going to hope that made some sense, and if it doesn't, maybe it will over the course of these 6 weeks. And so that, to me, is what the power of the neurodevelopmental framework offers. Oh, Jeremiah, thank you. Relationship-based teaching. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the scholar, you want the scholar to feel comfortable, and so knowing the kids matters a huge amount. I also am going to push all of your thinking a little bit to ask you to think about ways that you might use what you know about kids to not only connect with them on a personal level, but to identify particular strategies, tools, and lesson content that will support their growth and thinking. So if I know a kid knows lots about the subway and gets around town on their own, I might use that to relationship build by being like, oh, hey, I got stuck on the F2, blah, blah, have some kind of interpersonal conversation with them. I might also look for ways to use that knowledge within the context of a lesson or a unit of study so that I can draw on the kids' knowledge base. And that's where I'm going to take us over the course of, that's what that 3-part assignment is really designed to get you to think about a little bit. That's what I think lives powerfully within this neurodevelopmental framework. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about and think about over the next 6 weeks in terms of the constructs of language and higher order thinking. Yeah, so the effort, so Alexis is talking about effort when kids connect, and I totally agree with that. That's right. You get a lot more persistence and support kids' resilience when they feel connected in a sense of belonging in the classroom. There's a huge amount of research on that, not to mention just knowing it from practice, right? And so what we're going to do in this course is use that knowledge to connect with kids and to see what we can do academically for instructional purposes as well. That's, yes. Would asking estimated, perfect. So Jeremiah's example, oh, do you mind if I use that? I see that it was private. I'm asking, yeah, okay, great. So Jeremiah asked if asking estimated travel time would be a benefit to creating a connection. Yeah, in terms of like building up a relationship with a kid, I think so, because then this, depending on the student, but if this is something that a student knows a lot about, you then kind of flip the dynamic, so you put the child in a role of being an expert. At the same time, asking for estimated travel time, you could use as mathematically significant questions and use that as content for a lesson where you're talking about estimation, right, if he's good in math. Or if the kid's not good in math, but has developed a good sense of time with subways, you can then use that to help the kid build. So let's say you have a kid who shows a math weakness in terms of benchmark exams and the content, the way it's presented in your mathematics program, but is amazingly skilled or even just relatively skilled in estimating subway times and wait times. You might then see if you can help that student connect what they already know about estimating how long it's going to take to get somewhere in the city with a lesson on rounding and estimation. So like, well, how did you estimate that it would take an hour to get to Coney Island? Oh, well, I know that if I take the Q always stops, you know, it never runs right on Saturdays. And so it takes that extra 10 minutes. Okay, so you're rounding the 10 minutes, takes about 10 minutes. Sometimes it takes 8 probably, right? Sometimes it takes 12, but you round to 10 because then it's easy to estimate in your head. That's what we're doing on this page. Does that make sense? Yes, and it helps the scholar express themselves as well. Exactly. So there's lots of ways that, to me, that is playful teaching and really fun. And the lens that the neurodevelopmental framework offers us is, in my opinion and experience, useful and engaging. And so that's what I want to kind of give to you during course 2 while I'm with you. Okay? Alexis, math word problems is huge. Growing up in math. You mean, Alexis, you don't see them used in the classroom that much anymore? Interesting. Do you guys have a math program that you use at Brooklyn Lab School, in like or do you design your own math curriculum? I'm asking because I see math problems and I see a lot of struggle around them. Common Core math has a lot of demands of kids' expressive language. It places a lot of language demands on kids in mathematics. I see. Yeah, there's a lot of new language demands introduced into mathematics with Common Core. And I've been seeing word problems, but I haven't seen them used in a way that is often as supportive of kids' thinking as I would like. It's totally fine, don't worry about it. I have seen, and you guys may, if anyone's into this, I suggest Googling or just looking up this phrase, locally relevant curriculum. There's a program that comes out of, I'm going to write it here. I'm just in caps, I don't know why. Oh, that's responding to someone. Locally relevant curriculum at University of Pennsylvania. there's a project where teachers are working with the university faculty to design mathematics inquiries that are locally relevant to kids. So for example, that example, I think I was thinking of it. Oh, awesome, Rui, that's nice to see a math club in after school, great. I would suggest looking that up. I love that program. Like they did a thing where they were having kids compare, I think like, is it better to get downtown using the trolley or the bus? And they used different factors that they were using to determine what better and worse is. There was time, there was money, there was, you know, frequency of breakdown and things like that. So there were things that kids knew about already getting around Philly on public transportation, and they use that for mathematical work. And there's a lot of work that's been going around this kind of like local curriculum for kids. And yeah, and to me, that's kind of where Alexis was, what I was getting from Alexis's comment, is that word problems are huge, can be really helpful for making the math content make sense and in terms of applying it to your own life. Often what I see are math word problems that kids just have difficulty comprehending and getting meaning from, and then therefore responding to. So we can do some work about that too. Oh, Global Math Challenge. Really, I don't know about the Global Math Challenge, but I will look it up because I'm interested too. Let's hear about that. Oh gosh, these hours, they go faster than you would think. Yay, thank you for sharing a bit here at the end, guys. That's actually really, really helpful for me, and hopefully for you as well. So it's just past our time. I like to never hold people late. So I will close that session in a second, and I will ask you, there's a chat feature on our Moodle page for, let me just show you. I did it for like attendance. Will you just click on this, please? Week 1 Zoom session attendance sheet. And all you need to write is your name here or whatever. And then I'll know, because I've had different approaches to knowing who attended the Zoom session and who didn't in the past. None of them were satisfactory to me. So will you try that please? I would appreciate it. And then we'll see if we can get this going. Otherwise, have a great week. We have another session, Zoom session in week 2. So next week will be same time, same place, right here. And if you have any communications with me you would like to express between now and then, please email me or send me a message through our Moodle page. And otherwise, go Brooklyn. I'll be thinking of you. And thank you for your participation. Have a good night. Bye-bye.